I've always found it interesting that the disciples were not at the cross. They were not there on Good Friday when Jesus needed him the most, or maybe they were there. There's some verses that tell us that they watched it from a distance, but they weren't there. They weren't in his presence. There was one, as we'll see in a moment, John, who was there with the mother of Jesus. But the rest of those men that Jesus called out were not there. That does not mean that there were not followers of Jesus who were there, because there were people who loved Jesus and who followed Jesus who did not abandon Jesus. It just wasn't the group that you would think would be there. Of the people that you would think would be at the cross would be these disciples, especially the disciples had kind of tiers of disciples, if you would, a hierarchy without authority, but a hierarchy of closeness with Jesus. Peter, James, and John were given some special access to Jesus. They went with Jesus into some deeper places. So if nothing else, surely you would have thought that those three would have been there. Instead, just one of those three was there. But there were many people there who followed Jesus that were not disciples. In fact, they weren't the apostles, but they were followers of Jesus. Let me just read to you the text, and in fact I want to read a couple different texts to you that help us understand this, helps us identify some of them at least. Matthew chapter 27. And in Matthew chapter 27, verse 55, and this is after Jesus has died, the earth has shook, the temple has fractured, the veil has been torn. And it says in Matthew 27, verse 55, there were also many women there, looking on from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Notice how this tells us there were many women who were there, not just these, but many, and among those were identified Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Peter wasn't there, but his mama was there. And then if you look over in John's Gospel, and in John's Gospel, John chapter 19, verse 25 tells us, but standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, we believe that to be John, he said to his mother, woman, behold your son. Then he said to the disciple, behold your mother. And from that hour the disciple took her to his own home. I think what we see, and this is really amazing, that those that were so close to Jesus, the disciples, the men that Jesus was training to carry the gospel to the ends of the earth, that they were not there. But there was this group of women that ministered to Jesus along the way. And in the hour that he most needed someone, they were there. These women were there. Now I'm sure some of them were there for Mary, his mother, but there were, most of them I would say, were there to support Jesus. Now I want you to think about this. What impact does this have in our lives today? Think about the question, what could these women do for Jesus in this moment? Okay, why are they there? And especially in this culture, women were not given status. They were not viewed with dignity. They were certainly not regarded the way that God regards them. They were not viewed as having the worth that God gave them. So they're not in a position to change the situation. They can't take Jesus down off the cross. They can't fight the Romans to try to undo what's starting to be done. So why are they there? I would suggest to you that these women are there today, on that day, they were there on that day, to give Jesus the ministry of their presence. Just being there. I think one of the things that we underestimate is the value of our presence in the lives of other people. Sometimes we are not able to change a situation. There are many times that we cannot undo something that has been done. There are seasons of pain that we cannot relieve in someone's lives. There are valleys through which people walk that we cannot make the valley a mountain. Sometimes, as these women teach us, the best thing we can do is be there. Just be there. It's to offer to someone around us who is suffering the ministry of our presence. Now, I hope that your presence in someone's life is a blessing and not a burden, but it is one of the two. Your presence in the life of people will either be a blessing to them or it will be a burden to them. Make it your goal that your life would be a ministry of presence to someone. Let's take these ladies, these women as our example. Let's look to them as models of how we do ministry when we can't provide a solution, we can't provide an answer. Job had a few buddies back in the Old Testament who started off doing this, but then they opened their mouth and things went south quickly thereafter. Let's remember their example and the fallout from that compared to the example of these many women who were ministering to Jesus all along the way, and here in his deepest hour ministered by just being there. Find someone in your life today someone for whom you can just be there. Just be there. Just let them know that you're there. After all, doesn't that really mimic the model of Jesus, who never leaves us or forsakes us, who is always with us? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have the solution. Just offer the ministry of your presence as a blessing in the life of someone today.